The metal wrench slipped from James Walker's hand for the third time, clattering against the engine room floor of the starship Starweaver. Above him, loud clicking sounds that passed for laughter among the alien crew echoed through the chamber. "Look at the human, still using physical tools like a cave dweller," one of the tall, blue-skinned engineers said in the common space language. "My young offspring could fix that with their mind-link technology." James picked up his wrench without responding. After 6 months aboard the Starweaver, he had grown used to the mockery. He was the only human among the crew of 200 aliens, and they never let him forget it. While they used their advanced neural interfaces to operate machinery, humans still relied on primitive physical tools. But what they didn't understand was that James could fix things they couldn't even diagnose. Right now, the ship's secondary cooling system was failing, and none of their fancy neural interfaces could figure out why. James ran his hand along the cold metal pipe, feeling for vibrations. There, a subtle tremor that shouldn't be there. He tightened a connection that the ship's automated systems had missed, and the warning lights on the cooling unit turned from red to green. "Lucky guess," muttered the head engineer Tom, a simplified name he'd chosen because aliens couldn't pronounce his real one. Even a primitive species gets it right sometimes. James wiped the sweat from his forehead and gathered his tools. The engine room was always hot, especially near the cooling systems. The aliens didn't mind. Their bodies were adapted to higher temperatures, but for James, it was like working in a sauna. "Chief Engineer Tom," a voice crackled over the ship's comm system. "Report to the bridge immediately." Tom gave James one last dismissive look before gliding out of the engine room, his feet barely touching the ground thanks to his gravity manipulation implants. James watched him go, then sat down on a maintenance crate to catch his breath. He pulled out his datapad, another primitive tool the aliens mocked him for using, and checked his work schedule. 3 more repairs needed before his shift ended, and then maybe he could finally get some sleep. The door hissed open again, and First Officer Reed entered. Like all members of his species, he had 4 arms and skin that shifted colors with his emotions. Right now, it was a deep purple, the color of authority. "Human," Reed said, not bothering to use James's name. "The captain wants the maintenance report from yesterday." "I submitted it last night, sir," James replied, keeping his voice neutral. "Through the proper channels. We can't access it. Your human data formats are incompatible with our systems." Reed's skin rippled with annoyance. "Convert it and submit it again." James nodded, even though he knew the real problem wasn't compatibility. The aliens simply refused to install human-readable interfaces on their computers, forcing him to do extra work converting everything. "Right away, sir," he said, already pulling up the report on his datapad. It would take an hour to convert all the data, but complaining wouldn't help. Reed turned to leave, then paused. "By the way, human, the captain wanted me to remind you that you're not authorized to use the recreation deck during primary shift hours. Some crew members felt uncomfortable with your presence during their relaxation time." James clenched his jaw, but kept his face carefully blank. "Understood, sir." After Reed left, James allowed himself a small sigh. He'd only gone to the recreation deck once, hoping to watch the stars through its massive viewport. He wouldn't make that mistake again. He looked down at his hands, calloused from months of manual labor. The aliens might mock his physical tools and human limitations, but these hands could feel things their sensors missed, could spot problems their computers overlooked, could fix things their advanced technology couldn't. Someday, they would understand that humans weren't as primitive as they thought. But until then, James would keep doing what he did best, fixing their problems while they pretended they didn't need him. He picked up his toolbox and headed to his next repair job. The ship's waste recycling system wasn't going to fix itself, no matter how advanced the aliens thought they were. The alarms blared throughout the Starweaver, jolting James awake in his tiny quarters. Red emergency lights pulsed along the corridors as he rushed to the engine room, nearly colliding with hurrying alien crew members who barely noticed him. "All hands to stations," the captain's voice echoed through the ship. Unknown vessel detected. Prepare for possible salvage operation. When James reached the engine room, he found it buzzing with activity. Chief Engineer Tom was barking orders, his blue skin almost white with excitement. "Human," Tom called out, actually using a neutral tone for once. "Get the backup power systems ready. We might need them for the tractor beam." Through the engine room's small viewport, James saw it, a massive ship, dark and lifeless, drifting in the void. It was bigger than the Starweaver, its hull covered in strange markings that seemed oddly familiar. "Ship appears to be abandoned," the captain's voice announced. "No power signatures detected. Salvage team, prepare for boarding." To James's surprise, Tom pointed at him. "You're coming with us, human. If there's any primitive mechanical systems aboard, you might be useful." The salvage team gathered in the airlock. 4 aliens and 1 human. They wore sealed environment suits, though the aliens were far more advanced than James's basic model. As they crossed the void between ships in a small shuttle, James studied the derelict vessel through his faceplate. Something about those markings. They entered through a damaged airlock, their magnetic boots clicking against the metal floor in the zero gravity. The alien team members activated their suit lights, illuminating dark corridors covered in dust. "Spread out," ordered Tom. "Look for anything valuable. The human can check the engineering sections." James didn't mind being sent off alone. It gave him a chance to examine things properly, without the aliens rushing him along. He made his way down what appeared to be a maintenance tunnel, his helmet light revealing cables and pipes that looked strangely familiar. Then he saw it. Beneath years of dust and corrosion, there were words. English words. His heart pounding. James wiped away more dust with his gloved hand. More writing appeared. "Danger, high voltage, and authorized to personnel only." "This is impossible," he whispered to himself. This was a human ship, but humanity had never built anything this big, this advanced. Had they? His radio crackled. "Nothing but useless junk," Tom's voice reported. "No valuable technology. Just primitive mechanical systems." James hardly heard him. He'd found a door with more English text. "Central control. Restricted access." Next to the door was something the aliens had walked right past, a simple handprint scanner. With trembling fingers, James wiped it clean. Despite the ship's apparent age, a faint light still glowed beneath its surface. "I'm not finding anything either," he reported back, trying to keep his voice steady. "Just checking one more section." He pressed his gloved hand to the scanner. Nothing happened. After a moment's hesitation, he unsealed his glove and pressed his bare hand against the cold surface. The scanner lit up, and a mechanical voice spoke in perfect English. "Human DNA detected. Access granted." The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a room full of dormant control panels and dark screens. As James stepped inside, lights began to flicker on, systems awakening from decades or even centuries of sleep. A holographic display sparked to life in the center of the room, showing Earth's solar system. Text scrolled across it. "UNSC Prometheus, Deep Space Exploration Vessel. Human." Tom's voice came through the radio. "Return to the shuttle. There's nothing worth salvaging here." James stared at the slowly rotating hologram, his mind racing. This ship was human technology, far more advanced than anything his people were supposed to have achieved, and he was the only one who could access it. "On my way," he replied, making sure to seal the door behind him. He would return later, alone. Something told him this was just the beginning of a much bigger discovery. James waited 3 full shifts before he could sneak back to the derelict ship. The aliens had declared it worthless and moved on, leaving it attached to the Starweaver with a maintenance tether. They planned to strip it for basic materials at the next spaceport. "Computer, log maintenance route 7 inspection." James spoke into his datapad. If anyone checked, it would show him doing his normal duties. He'd learned long ago that the aliens never double-checked human maintenance logs. They considered them too primitive to be worth monitoring. The passage between ships was dark and cold. James moved carefully in his environment suit, his helmet light casting long shadows. This time, he went straight to the control room he'd found earlier. The handprint scanner recognized him immediately. As the door slid open, the room came alive just like before. But this time, James was ready. He moved to the central console and began studying the controls. "Welcome back, engineer," a calm voice said, making him jump. "Would you like to continue your previous session?" "There was no previous session," James replied cautiously. "I've never been here before." "Correct. Security protocol requires me to verify human awareness before proceeding. I am ARIA, the ship's artificial intelligence system." James stared at the holographic display in wonder. The aliens' A's were nothing like this. They couldn't hold conversations or make independent decisions. "ARIA, what is this ship? How long has it been here?" The UNSC Prometheus was launched in 2157 from Earth's Luna shipyards. Current date unknown. Ship systems entered dormancy protocol following the Great Decision. James's mind reeled. 2157. That was over 300 years ago, and humanity hadn't even reached Mars yet. Or so he'd been taught. "What was the Great Decision?" he asked. The holographic display changed, showing scenes of massive space battles. Human civilization once spanned 50 star systems. Our technology surpassed all known species. But the cost was high. 3 interstellar wars in 20 years. The Great Decision was humanity's choice to step back, to hide our true capabilities until we reached greater wisdom. James sank into a dusty control chair. Everything he knew about human history was wrong. They hadn't been late to join the galactic community. They'd withdrawn from it. "ARIA, show me more of the ship," he said. A 3-dimensional map appeared. Most sections were marked in red, indicating damage or decay. But one area pulsed green, deep in the heart of the ship. "The Prometheus protocol remains secure," ARIA reported. "Would you like to access it?" "What is it?" "The most powerful non-destructive weapon ever created by humanity. It can disable any technology, regardless of origin or complexity. Access requires command-level authorization." James thought of the aliens who mocked him daily, who treated all humans like primitive animals. With this weapon, he could show them just how wrong they were. "How do I get authorization?" he asked. "Command authorization requires proof of both ability and wisdom. Begin test sequence." James checked his suit's oxygen levels. He had 3 hours before his next scheduled check-in. "Begin test," he said. The floor beneath him hummed, and a hidden door opened in the wall. Beyond it lay a corridor he was sure wasn't on the ship's map, leading down into darkness. "First trial begins now," ARIA announced. "Navigate the mechanical maze using only human ingenuity. No advanced technology allowed." James removed his datapad and placed it on the console. After a moment's hesitation, he took off his environment suit too. It had too many built-in aids. In just his basic shipboard uniform, he faced the dark corridor. "Time limit, 1 hour, ARIA said. "Failure will lock out this section permanently. Success will grant access to the first level of the Prometheus protocol. Do you wish to proceed?" James thought of every sneer, every insult, every time the aliens had called humans primitive. But he also thought about responsibility, about proving them wrong the right way. "I proceed," he said, and stepped into the darkness. Behind him, the door sealed with a soft click. The real test was about to begin. The mechanical maze turned out to be exactly that. Mechanical. No electronics, no computers, just pure machinery. Gears turned against gears. Pistons pumped, and metal walls shifted in patterns that would have confused even the most advanced alien sensors. But James could feel the rhythm of the machines. Each movement led to another, like a giant clock. He made his way through by watching, waiting, and moving with the maze's mechanical heartbeat. Trial complete, HFY announced as James stepped through the final doorway. Time elapsed, 47 minutes. Human intuitive understanding of mechanical systems confirmed. He found himself in a circular chamber. The walls were lined with what looked like old-style computer servers, but they hummed with power that felt different from anything he'd ever encountered. Second trial begins, HFY said. Demonstrate wisdom. A hologram appeared in the center of the room, a simple display showing two buttons. One was labeled Power and glowed with promising energy. The other was labeled Knowledge and seemed plain and dull. Choose, HFY instructed. Power will grant you immediate control of the Prometheus Protocol. Knowledge will show you why it was created. Choose wrongly, and access will be denied forever. James stared at the buttons. The power option was tempting. With it, he could return to the Starweaver and show everyone what humans were capable of. But something felt wrong about that. He pressed Knowledge. The room darkened, then filled with images of Earth's past, the true past. He saw humans spreading across the stars, building wonders that made current alien technology look primitive. But he also saw the wars, the destruction, the near collapse of civilization. Humanity possessed power without wisdom, HFY explained. The Prometheus Protocol was created not as a weapon, but as a safeguard. It can disable any technology, yes, but its true purpose was to force people to remember their humanity when technology threatened to overcome it. The images changed, showing how Earth's leaders had chosen to hide their advancement, to let younger races develop at their own pace. They scattered ships like the Prometheus throughout space, waiting for the right time, the right people. You have chosen wisely, HFY said. The Prometheus Protocol is now yours to command. A small device rose from a hidden compartment. It looked like nothing more than an old wristwatch. James picked it up carefully. This device connects directly to human bioelectric fields, HFY explained. It can disable any technology within range or protect specific systems from being disabled. But it requires direct human control. It cannot be automated or replicated. James strapped it to his wrist. It felt warm against his skin, almost alive. There's something else you should know, HFY continued. The ship's sensors have detected multiple vessels approaching the Starweaver. Their energy signatures match known pirate raiders. Time to intercept, approximately 6 hours. James checked his own watch. His shift would start in 20 minutes. He had to get back. HFY, will you be here when I return? This chamber will remain accessible to you, but remember, the Prometheus Protocol wasn't hidden to give humanity power over others. It was hidden to teach us when not to use power at all. James nodded, understanding finally clicking into place. The weapon wasn't meant for attacking. It was meant for protecting, for reminding everyone that technology wasn't the only measure of advancement. One last thing, HFY said as he turned to leave. The device will appear as a simple mechanical watch to others. Even the most advanced scanners will see nothing special about it. Like humanity itself, its true power lies beneath the surface. As James made his way back to the Starweaver, his mind raced. Pirates were coming. The alien crew didn't know it yet, and when they arrived, they would find something they never expected, a human who could shut down their weapons with a thought. But first, he had maintenance duties to perform. After all, some problems still needed a wrench in human hands to fix them. The pirates attacked sooner than expected. James was in the middle of repairing a fuel line when the first blast hit the Starweaver. The ship's shields absorbed most of the impact, but the force still sent tools scattering across the engine room floor. All hands to battle stations. The captain's voice boomed through the ship. 3 pirate vessels detected. Weapons online. James grabbed his tools and secured them quickly. Through the engine room viewport, he could see the pirate ships, sleek, dark vessels designed for hit-and-run attacks. They were using some kind of technology that let them partially phase through the Starweaver's shields. Human. Chief Engineer Tom burst into the engine room, his blue skin pale with stress. Get the backup power systems online now. They're draining our shields somehow. Another blast rocked the ship. James ran to the power control panel, but he could already tell something was wrong. The pirates weren't just attacking. They were using advanced technology to hack the Starweaver's systems. Our weapons are failing. Someone shouted over the ship-wide comm. They got some new tech. Nothing's working. James felt the weight of the Prometheus device on his wrist. It looked like a simple old watch, but he could feel it humming against his skin, ready to be used. Hull breach on deck 3. The captain's voice was tense. All hands, prepare for boarding action. The decision time had come. James looked at Tom, who was frantically trying to reroute power to the weapons. The alien engineer who had mocked him for months was now helpless against the pirates' superior technology. "Sir," James said, "I might have a way to stop them." "Not now, human. Can't you see we're in the middle of a crisis?" Tom snapped, his fingers flying over the control panels. The ship shuddered again. Through the viewport, James saw the pirates boarding ships approaching. Their energy signatures pulsed with the same technology that was disrupting the Starweaver's systems. "Trust me," James said firmly. "Just this once." Something in his voice made Tom pause. The alien engineer looked at him, really looked at him, perhaps for the first time. "What can you possibly do?" James raised his wrist, touching the ancient device. "I can remind everyone that sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones." He closed his eyes, remembering Aria's lessons. The device wasn't about power, it was about wisdom. He focused on the pirate ships, on their advanced technology, on all the systems they were using to hurt others. The device warmed against his skin. Through his closed eyes, he could somehow see the energy patterns of the ships, the complex web of technology that made them so dangerous. With a thought, he sent out a pulse. Everything stopped. The pirate ships went dark. Their weapons died. Their boarding vessels drifted helplessly in space. Even their life support systems would have failed if James hadn't deliberately protected them. What did you do?" Tom asked, staring at the suddenly powerless pirate fleet. "I reminded them that technology isn't everything," James said quietly. "Their ships will work again in about an hour, just basic systems, enough to surrender safely." The bridge called down. "Engineering. Report. What just happened?" Tom looked at James, then at the dead pirate ships, then back at James. For the first time, there was no mockery in his eyes, only wonder, and perhaps a little fear. "It was the human," Tom said slowly. He saved us." The engine room fell silent, except for the hum of the Starweaver's engines. Engines that James had kept running with his old-fashioned tools and human intuition. "Captain," James spoke into the comm, "I suggest we offer the pirates a chance to surrender. Their ships won't be combat-ready for a while." As the captain acknowledged his suggestion, James caught his reflection in a darkened screen. He was still the same maintenance technician, still holding his simple wrench. But now he carried something else too. The responsibility of showing that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its hidden power, but in knowing when and how to use it. The captain's meeting room felt too small for the tension it contained. James sat at the table, surrounded by the ship's senior officers, all staring at him with a mixture of fear, respect, and curiosity. The simple device on his wrist felt heavier than ever. "Explain," the captain said. Unlike most of the crew, he had dark scales instead of blue skin, which now rippled with conflicting emotions. "How did you disable those pirate ships?" James took a deep breath. "I think it's better if I show you." He stood up and walked to the room's main display screen. "Aria, are you there?" The screen flickered to life, surprising the alien officers. "Greetings, James. I assume it's time for the revelation." "These aliens deserve to know the truth," James said, "about humanity's past, and why we hid it. The room darkened as ARIA began projecting images around them. The alien officers gasped as they saw scenes from Earth's hidden history. Mighty fleets of starships, worlds transformed by technology far beyond anything currently known. And finally, the devastating wars that almost destroyed everything. 300 years ago, James explained, humanity ruled the stars. We had technology that could reshape planets, ships that could bend space itself, and weapons that could shatter suns. But we weren't ready for that power. The images showed the destruction, the wars that had nearly ended human civilization. Then they showed something else, the great decision. Scenes of human leaders choosing to step back, to hide their advancement, to let the galaxy develop at its own pace. The Prometheus Protocol isn't just a weapon, James continued. It's a reminder. A tool to show that having power isn't the same as deserving it. Chief Engineer Tom spoke up, his voice unusually quiet. But why hide? Why let us mock you when you were so far ahead? James smiled slightly. Because true strength isn't in showing power, it's in knowing when not to use it. Humanity learned that lesson the hard way. The captain leaned forward. And now, will humanity reveal itself again? That's not my decision to make, James replied. But I can tell you this. The device I used isn't something that can be copied or stolen. It only works with human bioelectric fields, and it requires wisdom to use properly. That's why it was hidden in the first place. ARIA had displayed one final image. The galaxy as it looked now, peaceful despite its conflicts, developing at its own natural pace. The pirates have been detained, the captain said. Their ships are working again, but only basic systems. They're quite eager to cooperate now. He paused. What will you do next? James looked at his hands, the same hands that had fixed their engines with simple tools, that had felt the vibrations and understood the problems their advanced sensors missed. I'll do what I've always done, he said. Fix things that need fixing. Some problems need advanced technology to solve. Others just need human hands and simple tools. The trick is knowing which is which. Tom stood up suddenly. I need to apologize. We treated you like you were primitive, but all along. James shook his head. No apology needed. Sometimes being underestimated is the best way to learn about others. And yourself. The captain's scales shifted to a deep blue, a sign of respect in his species. From now on, things will be different on this ship, but I have to ask, are there more secrets? More hidden human ships and weapons? Probably, James said, but finding them isn't as important as understanding why they were hidden. Humanity didn't step back because we were weak. We did it because we were strong enough to wait until we had the wisdom to match our power. As the meeting ended, James looked out the viewport at the derelict ship that had changed everything. It had taught him that humanity's greatest achievement wasn't in building powerful weapons or advanced technology. It was in knowing when to wait, when to watch, and when to fix things with nothing but simple tools and human wisdom. 2 months after the pirate attack, the Starweaver felt like a different ship. James walked through the corridors, no longer ignored or mocked, but greeted with respectful nods from the crew. He still carried his old toolbox, still fixed things the simple way. But now everyone understood that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. The engine room had changed too. Next to the advanced alien diagnostic systems, James had installed a set of basic mechanical gauges. More than once, these simple tools had spotted problems the high-tech sensors had missed. James, Chief Engineer Tom called out as he entered. The alien engineer had stopped using human as a title weeks ago. Can you check something for me? James set down his toolbox. What's the problem? The new cooling system we installed. The sensors say it's working perfectly, but Tom hesitated. Something feels wrong. I thought maybe you could. Use the old-fashioned way. James smiled, picking up his wrench. Happy to help. As they worked together, Tom asked the question James had been expecting for weeks. Have you found any more? other human ships out there? If there are, they'll be found when the time is right, James replied, pressing his hand against a pipe to feel its vibration. That was the whole point of hiding them in the first place. The ship's intercom crackled. James Walker to the bridge, please. On the bridge, James found the captain talking with someone on the main screen. An alien admiral, judging by the elaborate uniform. Ah, Mr. Walker, the admiral said. I've been reviewing the reports about your discovery. The Galactic Council has some questions. James straightened his work uniform. I'm happy to answer them, sir, but I should warn you. There's a lot I don't know, and even more I don't think should be widely shared yet. The admiral's expression shifted. You're refusing to share technology that could benefit everyone. No, sir. I'm suggesting we learn from humanity's past mistakes. Power without wisdom is dangerous. Technology without understanding is just another kind of weapon. The captain stepped forward. Admiral, I've seen what Mr. Walker's device can do. But more importantly, I've seen what he chooses not to do with it. Perhaps that's the real lesson here. James touched the device on his wrist, still looking like nothing more than an old watch. Humanity didn't hide its advancement because we were ashamed. We hid it because we understood that every civilization needs to develop at its own pace, learn its own lessons. And who are you to make that decision for everyone? The admiral demanded. I'm just a maintenance technician, James replied calmly. I fix things that are broken. Right now, nothing's broken. The galaxy is growing, learning, developing naturally. Sometimes the wisest choice is to let things work as they should. After the admiral signed off, frustrated but unable to argue further, the captain turned to James. You know they won't stop asking questions. No, James agreed. But maybe that's good. Maybe asking questions is exactly what everyone needs to do more of. He walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, other human ships waited, each with its own secrets, its own tests, its own lessons to teach. But they would only be found by those who were ready to learn what they had to teach. What's next for you? The captain asked. James picked up his toolbox. The waste recycling system on Deck 4 is making that weird noise again. Thought I'd take a look. The captain blinked in surprise. With everything you could do, everything you know. I'm doing exactly what I should be doing, James said. Fixing what needs fixing, helping where I can help, and remembering that the simplest solution is often the best one. As he headed back to work, James smiled to himself. The aliens had finally learned that humanity wasn't primitive. They were patient, and sometimes that patience was the most advanced technology of all. In his pocket, his old wrench clinked against his toolbox. Some problems needed ancient weapons and hidden technology to solve, but most just needed human hands, simple tools, and the wisdom to know the difference.